Okay, so think about this. A geopolitical standoff, a global market panic, and a truly horrific personal crime. Now, on the surface, these three stories look like they have absolutely nothing in common, but what if I told you they're all being driven by the exact same destructive human impulse? Today, we're going to dig into the fragile ego and the devastating consequences that unfold when it's given power. It so often starts with just words. This comment, which was reposted by a US president, isn't just some random insult. It's a sign of a much bigger worldview, one that pushes aside diplomacy for dominance. Think of it as the first ripple from a destructive impulse that, as we're about to see, doesn't just shake up nations, it can completely shatter lives. And this kind of thing is definitely not an isolated incident. That exact same confrontational style is, right now, pushing another global flashpoint right to the edge. So let's take a look at the escalating tensions between the United States and Iran, a situation where inflammatory words are very quickly being backed up by military force. I mean, this single quote says it all, doesn't it? This is not the language of diplomacy. This is the language of a personal grudge. It turns a really complex international conflict into a simple standoff of wills. It's all about them versus me, a situation where backing down just isn't seen as an option. And that kind of talk is translating into a chilling reality. The U.S. Navy is sealing the Strait of Hormuz, which is a critical artery for the world's oil. Orders have actually been given to fire on Iranian boats. Israel has major targets marked, and at the same time, Iran has its air defenses on high alert. You see, this isn't some diplomatic disagreement anymore. This is a global chess game where every single piece is a warship or a missile. Okay, but you might be thinking, how does a military standoff thousands of miles away actually affect me? Well, the answer, as it often does, follows the money. And believe me, it reaches right into your wallet. In just 24 hours, one day, the price of a single barrel of crude oil jumped by $4. That's the immediate, real-world cost of all this geopolitical uncertainty. So then you take that $4 jump and apply it to a country like India, which imports over 5 million barrels of oil every single day. Well, that $4 jump suddenly becomes an extra $20 million in costs per day. That is a massive economic burden that somebody has to absorb. And you can bet the stock market felt that shockwave immediately. Foreign institutional investors, the big global players, they pulled their money out and they did it fast. We're talking about a sell-off that's equivalent to over $1 billion in a single shock. It's a huge vote of no confidence, because when the world feels unstable, big money runs for the exits. And this wasn't just one nervous reaction from a few investors. It was a global consensus. JP Morgan, HSBC, Goldman Sachs, Nomura, UBS, the heavy hitters. They all downgraded India's financial outlook, and every single one of them pointed to the same exact reason: the rising price of oil fueled by conflict. So we've seen how a battle of egos can destabilize the entire world. But this destructive impulse, this need to control, to dominate, to just refuse rejection, it doesn't only play out between nations. It plays out between people. And when it does, the consequences can be just as final. We're going to turn now to a shocking true story from Bangalore that shows this very same dynamic, but at its most personal and terrifying level. Kiran and Prerna's relationship had reportedly become possessive. So when he tried to create some distance, reconnecting with an ex, blocking her number, she just refused to accept it. Her response wasn't sadness, it was chillingly premeditated. She researched how to kill a person online, then lured him to her apartment promising a surprise, tied him to a chair, set him on fire, and then recorded his death. How on earth does something that starts as a relationship end in such a horrific act of violence? Well, the answer lies in really understanding the critical difference between love and its very dangerous counterfeit, obsession. Healthy love is a partnership. Simple as that. It's built on intimacy, which is really about trust and closeness. Of course, it has passion, both emotional and physical, but crucially, it has commitment, a mutual, conscious choice to be together. Obsession is the exact opposite. It is not a partnership. It's about ownership. It's driven by this idea that you belong to me. It has a desperate need to control the other person, and maybe most dangerously of all, it absolutely cannot handle rejection. And, these toxic dynamics, they often follow a pattern. It might start with scorekeeping, using past mistakes as weapons. It festers with passive aggression, where anger is hinted at but never really discussed. It even disguises itself as love, by mistaking jealousy for real affection. And it often leads to emotional blackmail. All of these are tactics designed not for connection, but for control. So, a president's taunt, an economic shockwave, a horrific murder. Let's pull way back now and look at the one single thread that ties all of these different stories together. On the world stage, we see ego-driven threats, a total lack of respect, and a desire to control territory. In a personal relationship, this looks like emotional blackmail, possessiveness, and a complete disregard for boundaries. But in both cases, when faced with defiance, the core impulse is identical. If I cannot control you, I will destroy you. The response isn't discussion, it's escalation. It's not peace, it's violence. And really, that's what it all boils down to. It doesn't matter if it's a president who can't stand to be challenged or a partner who can't stand to be left. The destructive impulse is exactly the same. It all comes from an ego so fragile that it cannot tolerate being told no. Which leaves us with a pretty critical question to think about, not just when we're looking at world affairs, but in our own lives too. At what point does a powerful passion cross the line and become a destructive obsession? And what happens when the people who cross that line are the ones holding all the power?